2018, this bill provides state and local sales tax and use tax exemptions for all machinery, equipment, computers, electrical energy, gas, water, other utilities, including communication services used in data storage centers. In order to receive the sales tax exemption provided for the new data storage centers, an application must be made by DED for certification. Such application must show the project will result in at least $5 million of new facility investment over a 3-year period. The Senate committee substitute that I'm talking to adds provisions which allows a governing body of any municipality to enter into loan agreements or sell or lease or mortgage municipal property to private entities for the development of technology business, and also it allows for if there's any local abatement, it has to be run through the local authorities. It also provides a state and local use tax exemption of purchase of tangible personal property for the construction, repair, or remodeling of new data storage center, which we think will result in new jobs, quick jobs right away. It also creates exemption of local for existing data storage centers for all machinery, equipment, computers, electrical energy, including services. These exemptions only apply to the increase in expenditures for utilities over the previous year's expense. And in order to provide the tax exemption, the application was made by DED, blah, blah, blah. I have a number of people that know about this more than me, and I'll answer any questions. If not, I'll bring the witnesses, Mr. Chairman.
For those people, and it seems like this group probably is more familiar than the average group on data centers, but they're mission-critical facilities that house computer servers, telecom equipment, digital storage devices, and the cooling equipment, power, and fiber that goes with it. Basically, as Gail said, warehouse for proper processing data that's operational 24/7 with no downtime. Used by enterprise companies, hosting and managed services companies, and the government. Crucial to hospitals, universities, financial institutions, and they work in small towns and large towns, as you're hearing about in Oklahoma, Des Moines, Iowa. We think it's an industry cluster that Missouri should target. As we produce less physical product, we definitely process more data, and that's where the growth is right now in the economy. And the easiest way to take it to real life is data centers allow us to operate in the online world. It's in the online world is where Wikipedia is the new dictionary, iTunes is the new music store, sporting events are watched on smartphones. That's what data centers are doing. They're processing this data. It's a $27 billion industry now, growing at about 8%. Large private investment. If you build a warehouse, it's $50 a square foot. A tier 3, and I can explain that, a data center would run somewhere between $1,300 and $2,000 a foot. So it's not something you can do speculatively unless you really believe it can happen. And that's before everybody moves in with the servers, racks, and equipment. That's just to get it ready. The jobs that we've talked about at data centers range kind of in that $75,000 a year job. They're tech people, they're consulting people, they're cybersecurity, they're engineering. But the real job creation is really on the people that construct the data. So you think of it as an industry. It's the people that construct the data centers. It's the people that supply them and maintain them going forward. And I did a little research on companies in the state of Missouri right now that would benefit from an expanded deal. Emerson in St. Louis, they offer cooling, UPS, PDUs, racks, and connectivity to data centers, and are very focused on the data center industry. Fite Corporation, that's out of Blue Springs, Missouri, they do fire protection, fire suppression for data centers. HOME out of Herman, which I wasn't familiar with before, but they manufacture the cabinets that house the servers. And Big St. Louis, I mentioned, designs data centers. Clayco Electric in St. Louis, electrical contracting company that specializes. So those are some examples. Missouri can compete in this, and the reason they can compete is because we have low power costs. That's the number one thing everybody's looking for. We, at least in the Kansas City area, it's under 5 cents per megawatt. You can go to the East Coast, West Coast, and you're going to be up 12, 14, 15 cents. We have the availability on the grid of power. We have the availability of fiber. We're protected from natural disasters in most of the areas, and we have the IT talent here. But again, we need to provide data centers with the same thing that manufacturers of widgets have, but we're manufacturing bits and bytes. If we offer these incentives, it'd put us on an even playing field, and you've heard the states that we focus on: Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Kansas. The actual incentives that we're talking about are available in all of those in those states. And we're looking for incentives for the materials used to construct a data center, the machinery and equipment that is used in a data center, and the power and utilities that are used. And this is a sales tax abatement. That sales tax abatement doesn't happen until DED certifies the project, make sure you've made a minimum investment, and that's for new is $5 million. And then once you've spent that $5 million and done the things that you said you'd do in the project plan, then you get a rebate on your sales tax, and then in the future you're abated. From a utility standpoint, the sales tax on utilities, so power and fiber, we have made it in this legislation, and it's really, really clear in the legislation that if somebody is growing, it is only the power over and above what they have right now that gets incented. There's also a committee substitute, I believe, that you guys have gotten that relates to the personal property tax piece of this. The personal property tax, we understand, is a local issue. So what we're looking for here is just a mechanism that allows us to use the same thing that we already have in place, Chapter 100 bonds, but allows us to do it for a multi-tenant facility where they don't have to issue the bonds. Because once you issue bonds, you can't, that's so expensive to do that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do it. It would still fall, it's a mechanism that's just like Chapter 100, and it would still fall within local jurisdictions. So the local people, the school districts, the taxing districts would still be at the table. So that's the personal property tax piece of it. We did an economic impact study last year just to talk about the economic impact. One point, and we did this over a 10-year period, we basically said that you'll have 100,000 square foot of data center space added each year. That's about 5% of the $27 billion industry. And what you would get over a 10-year period is $1.5 billion of investment in data center construction, $1.3 billion of private investment by tenants in the IT equipment, 750 permanent jobs at 75,000, which is about a $56 million payroll, 4,000 temporary construction jobs, or $100 million average annual payroll. And our economy's been hurt the most, and the majority of the workers that are out are construction workers. And people call construction workers, well, that's a temporary fix. That's not a permanent job. If we bring an industry like this to the state, those temporary jobs become permanent jobs. All construction jobs are temporary jobs. They go from one project to another project. If we have enough of them, we can keep them employed and keep the trades and the unions happy. From the economic impact study we did, we basically said that data centers, based on the assumptions, the 5% of $27 billion, not building in any growth, we basically said it'll generate $760 million to the state. There's $220 million then potentially of incentives, and those don't go out unless this really happens, which creates $540 million that comes back to the state, which is a 24.5% return. So based on the positive ROI that this has and the ability to bring an industry here, we're encouraging your support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy King here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, and we too would like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 217. The Digital Realty Trust, which is the world's largest wholesaler of data center, the data center industry, did a survey last year, and the results of that survey showed that 83% of businesses are looking to expand or build data centers over the next 3 years. So Missouri meets all the requirements to actually locate a data center here, and Aura did a very good job on hitting on all of those, but we're missing one thing, and that's our tax framework. And obviously we're at a competitive disadvantage to our neighboring states as far as offering both sales tax and property tax abatement and incentives. The decision on where to place these data centers are happening now. It's between a $10 to $12 billion potential investment on the table over the next 3 years. So as a state, we can either secure our portion of that investment or be left behind. I do want to note in the fiscal note, first of all, if the bill passed and immediately on day one somebody started building a data center and applied to the Department of Economic Development, there would not be a fiscal impact until 2014. They'd have to be certified and then request the refund. There's actually a graph on the bottom of your fiscal note that shows that if a new data center invested $5 million here, that the revenue loss for that $5 million investment would be approximately $150,000. So I think that's a fair investment for the amount of investment that the industry is willing to make here. Again, I want to highlight too, it's not an urban or a rural piece of legislation. Data centers can be located anywhere in the state, and I believe the New York Times just actually came out on February the 8th with an article highlighting St. Louis and the fact that its Ameren's utility rates are about 41% lower than other cities across the nation, that they are a potential hub for data centers. But again, we also have the possibility of putting data centers in a rural area and expanding the broadband development out to those local rural areas. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.